my beautiful friends. My name is Kim, and I hope you're having a fabulous day today. If you are interested in true crime like I am, I hope that you would consider hitting that subscribe button. But either way, thanks for being here. As you guys know, my mom just passed away. I'm not going to address that in this video. I'm going to do a Q&A, but thank you so much for your love and support. It really does mean a lot. Your comments have just blown me away. I even got a link for FEMA to pay for funeral expenses because of COVID-19 relief funding that they have going on. So I am going to talk about it, but just not in this video. But today's case, we're going to be talking about Takoda Collins. I had so many requests to talk about this one. Thanks so much for your suggestions. Please keep them coming. If you are not familiar with this case, it is about a 10-year-old boy who lost his life to his father. Multiple reports were made to CPS. Let's talk about Takoda Collins. Takoda Collins died December 13th at the age of only 10 years old, 15 days before his 11th birthday. His father has been accused of and convicted of abusing and raping him. 2 women were also charged in endangering children. I came across this timeline and it is based on the court records and public files. So it gives an idea of what kind of people were involved in Takoda's life. These were his guardians. Takoda was born on December 18th of 2008. He was born to Robin Collins and al-mutahan McLean in Wisconsin. A friend, Anita Brenson, took care of Takoda for a period of time. It was because Robin was unable to care for him, so Anita and her fiance stepped up and took Takoda home. Even though they were working to adopt him, that never happened. Takoda was said to have lived in 3 different foster families. Al McLean, Takoda's biological father, was not around. He never called, Anita would say, but McLean came out of the blue one day to Wisconsin and did a DNA test, and he was Takoda's father. So he took Takoda from Anita and her fiance, and for all intents purposes, Al was a complete stranger to Takoda. You know, he's living with his family, and all of a sudden this man out of nowhere comes and gets him. It's his father, so he had the rights to come and get him. So that's exactly what he did. And Anita would say that the last time that she would see him is at his 4th birthday party. Anita would continue to say that Takoda was a happy baby. They had raised him from 11 months old. Robin, Takoda's mom, would often stop by to check on him. It was said that Robin's boyfriend had spanked Takoda is why she lost custody of him, but Robin actually admitted in 2009 to the Wisconsin police that she had indeed hit Takoda. So she receives probation and loses custody. When Takoda was 3 years old, Robin's probation was revoked and she was sent to prison. And it was said to be because of drug use. Al is proven to be a violent man. So we know Robin's in and out of jail because of drugs. And then we have this violent man, Al. McLean is accused of hitting his fiancée Amanda Hines over the head with a pipe, dragging her by her hair to a car, and punching her before driving away with her. And this happened in Wisconsin. But charges were later dismissed by the prosecutor. April 2012, McLean hits and chokes a man in Wisconsin he thinks has his cell phone, pleads guilty to disorderly conduct. March of 2016, Amanda calls police saying McLean is drunk and refusing to leave. Officers respond and allegedly find McLean drunk and aggressive. They advise Amanda of eviction process. So sorry, you're getting beat up, but you have to follow this eviction process. It's really concerning how many times he's gotten away with hitting Amanda, but never going to jail. So I'm not sure what the circumstances are, why that is the case, but anyways, it just proves that he's a violent man. Amanda calls Dayton police saying a neighbor is intoxicated and threatening to kill her. Police arrive and allegedly find that both the neighbor and McLean appear to be intoxicated and fighting. The incident ends and nobody is arrested. A caller gives the name of Al. He contacts the police to report that a woman is assaulting him. So another call of violence in that home. Again, no one is taken into custody. August 2016, Montgomery County Sheriff's Office serves a civil protection order to McLean. Records show it was from a woman he had met locally who says he assaulted her. July 2016, the protection order was dismissed because the incident didn't meet the threshold for the order. So I don't know what the details are of that order, but again, another report. So this brings us to October 2013. Robin, Takoda's mother, writes to the court asking for McLean, the father, to be prevented from taking Takoda out of the state, claiming McLean's treatment of Takoda is under investigation by child welfare officials in Wisconsin. October 2013, McLean receives permanent sole custody of Takoda after having temporary custody since at least July of 2013. And Takoda would have been around 4 or 5 years old at this time. Robin writes the court in Wisconsin again to report that McLean moved with Takoda to Union City, Tennessee. He ripped him out of school and left. I have no idea what's going on. Without CPS involved and any information, I'm not even sure. She says that she's not even sure how he is. It's interesting to hear her say without CPS involved because, mind you, there is an open investigation, an active case. Then no follow-up was done and the case was potentially closed, allegedly? I don't know. McLean files with the Wisconsin court that his intent is to move Takoda to Pennsylvania. Robin signed a notarized letter agreeing to let him leave and move with Takoda, but then she later says that she was coerced into signing this document. So I'm not sure how that pressure occurred. Again, there's a lot of unknowns with this case. This didn't go to trial. So anyways, she said she was coerced to signing. She was pressured to sign. 4 months before his 6th birthday, first day of school was at Horsemane Elementary School in Dayton, Ohio. Now, mind you, he just got approval to move to Pennsylvania, and they're in Ohio. The school, the date is unknown of when he started in 2014, which is bizarre to me. It's school, they do roll call, but it's reported that they don't know. Wisconsin court rules that McLean is allowed to move to Takoda to Pennsylvania. Robin maintains her visitation rights. But what's strange about that is in December, just 2 months later, Amanda Hines buys a house on Kensington Drive in Dayton, Ohio. Amanda Hines is the fiance of McLean. Amanda worked at Walgreens. She had a scheduled shift of 2 to 11 p.m. Sometimes she worked during the day, but her normal shift was later in the evening. And the children were left with McLean and her sister. Amanda would say her sister is mentally not there. She doesn't talk much because they were both put into their own interrogation room. Amanda's sister's name was Jennifer Ebert, and she lived in the home with both Amanda and McLean. Later, McLean's baby brother was dropped with Amanda and McLean to take care of. They were not sure where the mom was. They would say most likely in jail, but they're just not sure. They said that they picked the brother up and he was only a year old and was with their aunt at the time. The aunt was taking care of him, and his body was bruised and he was underweight when they went to go get him. February of 2016, Montgomery County Children's Services calls Dayton police for a well check regarding possible abuse of Takoda's 9-year-old brother. No one answered the door when the officers arrived and nothing happened. August of 2016, Takoda's older brother runs away. Once found, he tells the police that he is forced to do squats while holding a heavy backpack as punishment. Police contacted Child Services and officers are told a referral was made. Police attempt to search the Kensington Drive address, but couldn't because of some pit bulls. Like, they couldn't ask them to put the pit bulls away, so they couldn't search parts. Like, that's the most bizarre thing to me I've ever heard. You just get a couple dogs and rooms aren't going to be checked. I don't know. What's going on in Dayton, Ohio? What's going on? May of 2018, Dayton, Ohio Public Schools worker at Montgomery County Child Services request a welfare check on Takoda because they fear that he is being abused. Police respond to the Kensington Drive home and get no answer at the door. The school employee said she decided to call 911 after McLean called his son out from school, claiming that the boy was sick. While Montgomery County Jobs and Family Services requested officers to perform a welfare check, the report stated that the officers left Takoda Collins' home after no one answered the door. Months later, in late July, McLean filed paperwork to have Takoda Collins pulled from school to be homeschooled. And it was actually Amanda who was able to put all that paperwork together to get Takoda homeschooled. And of course, we know that Al isn't smart enough to put all that paperwork together. So they claim that Takoda had behavioral issues and was potentially going to be kicked out of school. So they thought the best thing was to pull him out and do homeschooling, and that would help. The following November, McLean reportedly called 911 and claimed his son was talking crazy and not listening. McLean was interested in having Takoda sent to a juvenile center. Sorry, I changed my hair up a little bit, but all of a sudden he decided that he wasn't ready for him to go to a juvenile center, in that he was going to take him to a hospital for behavioral analysis, which he never did. It never happened. Resources were offered to him and his family for behavioral counseling and to get him into programs which would help him psychologically, but he wanted him to be in pain. He wanted the torture to continue after him. He didn't want him to get better. So he never did anything to better Takoda. Amanda would say that her and McLean took Takoda to therapy, but only went a couple times, and the therapist stated he didn't need therapy. So they stopped going. Have you ever heard of a therapist saying someone doesn't need to come after 2 sessions, knowing that the child is struggling? This same kid that didn't need therapy, Amanda stated that he threatened her with a knife. So instead of, getting him help, she just hid the knives in her room. Clearly, Amanda has a colorful way of describing the events that happened in that house of horror that Takoda had to live in. She would say that she would put Takoda in a room she called the library, with books, papers, and a tablet to do his work. But she would also say she never really saw Takoda because she worked sometimes 6 days a week.
He had a lot of behavior problems. He was going to get kicked out of school. So we just decided to homeschool him to see if that would work. He just didn't listen. He didn't want behavior problems. The therapist said that he didn't need therapy. He's only had therapy a couple of times.
She would wake up, go to work, and return, and everybody was asleep. Which is it, Amanda? Were you homeschooling them in this library, or were you working all the time and never seen them? Around May 12th to May 24th, 2018, Takoda is pulled from school by McLean, the father, before the end of the school year, but the exact date is unknown. According to multiple Dayton school officials, school staff say they never saw the boy again. Don't they have roll call at these schools? How do they not know exact dates? The 12th to the 24th? That's a huge gap to know if a kid is in school or not. Takoda is formally withdrawn from school and is homeschooled, but this went on for 2 years. He was homeschooled. November 2018, McLean and Amanda called Dayton police complaining that Takoda was being unruly. McLean asked police to take the boy to a juvenile center. Once Takoda is in the back seat, McLean says he doesn't want to press charges and he will take Takoda to the hospital. Hospital officials say he never came. May of 2019, Robin files a motion for contempt in court against McLean. Robin is the mother. McLean has never never brought Takoda to see her since he left the state. I haven't spoke to him, and it was like once in 4 years, she would write. Wisconsin court dismisses Robin's motion, saying the case is in jurisdiction of Ohio since Takoda lives there now. So she's stuck in between states. Robin calls Dayton police, telling them that she believes her son is being abused by McLean. Police respond, and dispatch records say that they believe Takoda was being cared for. What? Records don't say whether child services was contacted. Here is the 911 call. It's disturbing.
Regional dispatch.
Hi, I need to speak with somebody about doing a welfare check on my son, who I believe is in danger right now.
Okay, at what address?
1934 Kensington Drive.
Okay, repeat that address for me once again.
1934 Kensington Drive. And I don't know how you guys do things or how it works or anything, but I believe that his father is abusing him and hurting him, and that he's too scared to tell anybody because his father won't let him talk to anybody. He's pulled him out of school. So if you guys need my permission, I'm giving you guys full permission to pull him to the side and speak with him, that he's supposed to bring him back to the state 4 times a year. I'm supposed to have phone conversations with him once a week, talk to his schooling, and talk to his doctors. He has not abided by the court order in 4 years. I did not know where he was living because he was supposed to be living in Erie, Pennsylvania. Thank God that he caught a drunk driving in Dayton, Ohio, and now I have his address. I've been trying to work with him to talk to my son, and he gave me a bunch of things that are very concerning. He locked him in his room. He tried to jump out a window. He sent him to school in a diaper. He pulled him out of school. He whips him with a belt. Just a bunch of stuff that's very concerning to me.
Okay, how old is your son?
He's 10. He'll be 11 in December.
What's his name?
His name is Takoda, Takoda.
And his last name?
Is Collins.
Okay, and you think that he's actively abusing him right now?
Yes, I think he is, yes.
Okay,
I definitely do. Just the way that he's talking to him on the phone, telling him how angry he is with him and how if I don't come and get him, something's going to happen and he's going to take him to a group home and drop him off, and how when he acts up, how he disciplines him with a belt and he'll lock him in the room, and just very demeaning and very vulgar. I don't really know if he's telling the truth or not, but even if he's not, I would feel much better knowing that a police officer pulled my son to the side and talked to him one-on-one to make sure that nothing is going on. He won't let me talk to him. When he does let me talk to him, he stands over him on the phone and tells him what to say. I spoke with him one time in the last 4 years, and that was 2 days ago.
And what's the father's name?
His name is Al, A-L, and his last name is McLean, M-C-L-E-A-N.
Okay, and do you know what Al's date of birth is?
It is 4/1 of 89 or 4/3 of 89. I'm not sure.
And so you heard him yelling on the phone?
I have it recorded, ma'am, where he's talking about how he's so angry at Takoda and how he hates him, and just like a whole bunch of stuff. He yells at him, he's screaming at him, telling him to get on the floor, just like all types of stuff.
Takoda dies December 2019 at the Children's Hospital. McLean is arrested. Montgomery Children's Services say they do not have an open investigation case on Takoda. Even though Robin had just called in May, we are going to start with Amanda's interrogation and what she stated. Because this didn't go to trial, I gathered the information where I could. She stated that she woke up, and I will tell you that it's all a lie, but this is what she said. That she woke up around 1 p.m., she grabbed her sister, she grabbed the little brother, the 3-year-old, and she heard Takoda in the bathtub, but she didn't go in the bathroom. Who wakes up and never pees before they go and run errands? So we can establish early that she lies. Who doesn't pee before they leave the house? She said she left the house in her PJs. When she returned, she's seen all the police cars. She said no one would tell her what was going on until McLean told her that Takoda was unresponsive. McLean and Amanda were together for 8 years at this point. She would say she hardly saw Takoda as she would get up, go to work, and by the time she got home, everybody was sleeping. Amanda was asked what all the marks on Takoda were. What's going on? He's bruised head to toe. Tell me what's going on. They asked about the large cut on foot. She had no idea. The bruises on his face, no idea. It's been a week, she said, since she saw him. Bruises all over his body, his legs, his arms. She has no idea. She was asked, what about the bruises on his hands? Her response was, I usually leave the house and don't see him often. The same boy that she claimed she homeschooled, but she never saw or talked to him, they would ask Amanda where Takoda slept. She would say the room across from her in McLean. In that room, they found no clothes that fit Takoda, only toddler clothes. In the attic that Amanda said they didn't use because it was for the dogs and whatever, and it leaked, they found urine, feces. It stunk. Okay, so the bedroom, we know that Takoda isn't sleeping in there. It is set up for a toddler, which is McLean's brother, whose mother is absent. And so he has this bedroom, all of his clothes and toys and everything are in this room. It's set up. It does not look like a 10-year-old lives in this room. But when you go to the attic, which is off of the living room, there is a lock on the attic door, right? And they said they did that only for the dogs. But you go up these stairs and it is just filthy. Urine, feces, it's disgusting. There's a bucket up there. In a separate room, they have a tarp and like a lounge chair, I guess is what it is. And that's supposedly his bed.
Is there a light up there?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We had TVs up there, all that. It was a room. But he screwed up.
But that's not what it is today.
Uh-uh.
Today it's an empty room with a broken stool and a bucket.
Right, but it usually be his bedroom, like I said. I open it up at night, I bring his bed out and bring his tarp out.
And by his bed, you mean like a green lawn chair looking
I had to
thing.
go with that route because you got to understand as a parent, when you got an 11-year-old pissing and shitting on that thing every day, what are you supposed to do? Put a mattress?
I'm just making sure that that's the bed that you're talking about.
Yes,
It's the
ma'am.
green cotton lawn.
And he's not allowed to have his bed in his room because he destroys everything, apparently. Amanda would say the attic was for their dogs, and they put their dogs up there sometimes. Officers would ask, did you train your dogs to go to the bathroom in buckets? Because we found a bucket of urine up there. She would say they were buckets for the leak that happened from the ceiling. When they pressured her more about why he looked the way that he did, she asked for a lawyer and stopped talking. She would later turn on McLean, and it was said that she knew exactly what was going on. They had a TV set up where you could see Takoda upstairs, and they would watch him. They would torture him, have him sit in poses, and if he moved, they would spank him and beat him. And it's just like she knew all along. And I believe she knew he was dead when she left that house. The autopsy showed that poor Takoda had rib fractures on both sides of his body, numerous injuries to his torso and extremities, blunt force trauma to his head and torso. He was extremely beaten for an extended period of time. He also had liver damage, most likely from blunt force trauma as well. They didn't find clothes for Takoda because he was locked in a dark, dirty attic, naked, with no access to outside world or other people. He was abused daily for years. Remember, he had been homeschooled for 2 years, so at least that amount of time. There were definite signs that Takoda had been sexually assaulted by his father. He was held underwater and tortured in his final hours by his father. Amanda and her sister would say that as punishment, Takoda would be bent over with his legs crossed for hours. They would also say if they ever said anything to McLean about the abuse, they would be beaten. And I don't really believe that. I mean, I believe there was abuse happening, but I don't think they were trying to protect Takoda. They never said anything to anyone or tried to get Takoda help. They instead, with the frickin' cherry on top, they would tell McLean when Takoda didn't do what they asked, so he could punish him, so he could beat them, so he could torture him, These people participated. The worst of the bunch definitely was Al McLean. He had an education level of 8th grade. He was 32 years old at the time of the incident. But because this didn't go to trial, I don't know much about McLean. He said during the interrogation that he was adopted. I'm not sure if that's true or not. During McLean's interrogation, McLean would say that he hadn't slept in 3 days. And Takoda kept knocking his head around, and he thought there was something wrong with his stomach. Since the day before he died, he would say his stomach was extended and thought it was due to him eating his own feces. But later, Amanda or her sister Jennifer would say that they seen McLean with a glove on shoving feces in his face. He said that he kept giving Takoda glasses of water that Takoda kept throwing up, but it was abnormal, so he wanted to make sure that he had water. He would say that Takoda would eat his own, quote, his own shit. And after he gave him the water, Takoda went upstairs to the attic and he started jumping on the bed, pissing and shitting everywhere. Sorry, not my words. You know the usual, he would say. Oh, he's just doing the usual. Remember, he is talking about his son that just passed away. He is talking with such disdain for his son. He talks foul, so please bear with me while I explain what he said happened. He said he went upstairs to check on him again, and he had a stick or chair leg in his ass. So he asked him to take it out. When he did, blood squirted out and immediately took him to the bath to clean him up, but didn't call for help for his son. He has blood squirting out. If blood is squirting out of anywhere, you need help. Like blood, that's not normal. That's not just put a Band-Aid on it. He said he didn't think much of it because this was, again, the usual. He had done this to himself in the past. He would claim that Takoda would do anything he could to put bruises on himself. I'm going to play a clip so you can get a feel of what kind of person we're dealing with.
So you talk about these outbursts that he has all the time, 24/7 it sounds like, right? Keeping you up at night, he's being defiant, he's having these outbursts or this acting out. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you have any of that on video that you could show us what you mean by that?
Oh, no. Because it would be so embarrassing for me to be walking around with that in my phone. Like, I loan my phone to my friends and stuff. Like, what would they think of that?
Okay. Earlier you said that you've been telling people about these outbursts. You've been telling all these people about his crazy behavior. You know, all this stuff he's doing. Who have you been telling?
Well, CPS, only the 30, 40 times they came to my house, but they never found me to be an unfit parent or, you know what I mean?
Who else have you been telling?
I have had more tears for Takoda than his own father. McLean would go on to say that Takoda had jumped out of a window at one point. He would receive a deep cut on his foot and damaged a tendon, and he had to go to the hospital. He stayed in the hospital overnight. McLean would describe it as him being defiant, but I am inclined to believe that Takoda was jumping out of that window to get help. He wanted to be free of the abuse, and jumping out of that window, no matter how much damage it would cause, he was desperate. McLean said that he had to keep Takoda upstairs in the attic because of the smell, and he wanted to protect his brother that he was taking care of. So apparently this brother had a completely different treatment than Takoda. I'm not going to say that this 3-year-old that lived in that home was never abused, but he lived as a normal child. Takoda was the brunt of the abuse that Al McLean would give. What would happen is that Takoda is locked in this attic and he's only allowed to come out to use the bathroom when the younger brother is sleeping. So in the morning time or in the evening time. And there was a couple of times he came down. Mind you, he has no clothes. He's up there naked. And he would come out of this dark attic with no lighting up there and to use the bathroom on occasions. And when the 3-year-old 3-year-old, he apparently saw him naked, and so that was another abuse to Takoda, which is just insane. But this 3-year-old was protected, that they didn't want the 3-year-old to even acknowledge Takoda. The officers would ask McLean if they gave Takoda a blanket. Now they know that he doesn't have a blanket up there, but McLean would answer, we can't give him a blanket because he pees on it and that gives him rashes. And he would explain that that's unsanitary. He said that he called the police to try to get some help, but was told that he needed to wait until he was a bit older to be sent to a juvenile detention center. He said that he was told by a social services that they could get him in a program when he was 12 years old. Now, mind you, Takoda is 15 days away from being 11 years old and the day of his death. I just don't understand why that was a solution for social services, that to hold on to for another year. I don't know exactly when that conversation had, but it's ridiculous. Oh, we'll just let it go for a year and a half for a child that's jumping out of a window? No, clearly there was something going on. Kids don't just behave that way. If he was even actually behaving the way that McLean describes, there is something going on. He needs help. That was his way of telling them he needed help, in my opinion. This man, McLean, is so disgusting. Sorry, not sorry. What I am going to say next is so disturbing. He said that Takoda would sexually assault himself with a table leg or chair legs. He said he never did anything like that to him, that is, quote, homophobic. His words, not mine. And he wasn't into that he was not gay. He's talking about his dead son, and he's worried that they think that maybe he's gay. It makes my brain hurt. I do not understand. Why is that his concern, that they think he's gay? What the? He would say he would occasionally ask him to watch TV with him, but in another breath, he would say Takoda wasn't locked upstairs. He was asked who homeschooled Takoda, and he paused and said, I do. But remember, Amanda also said that she homeschooled him. It's safe to say that he was not being homeschooled by anybody. And why is he allowed to be homeschooled? I say this in so many different videos. If you have an open case or have had open cases with CPS, it should be a law that you are not allowed to homeschool. Because how many cases have I covered that they tell their teacher, tell the social services at school, the social worker, tell all these people about what's happening to them, and what do the parents do? They pull them out of school. What happens next? I'm doing a video on them, unfortunately. So there's been a couple people that say, oh, people open up CPS cases for, just about anything. So it's not fair to not allow them to be homeschooled. I'm sorry. The little percentage of people who have had a CPS case who are good people in homeschool, that's fine. That is the sacrifice for these other children that are being killed because they're homeschooled. I'm sorry, but that's just my opinion. It's a very strong opinion, and I am not going back on it. If you have an open case with CPS, you should not be allowed to homeschool. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. McLean said that he had to throw all of Takoda's school supplies away because Takoda damaged them. He couldn't give him books because he would ruin them, and he didn't have the money to replace them. Yeah, safe to say he was not being homeschooled. He had no supplies, in my opinion. McLean had cameras, as I mentioned, on Takoda, and he saw him plunging on a table, he would say, the morning of his death. This was around 6 a.m., but didn't think much of it. He was just doing his normal weird things, he would say.
I didn't think nothing of it. I just see that he bruised up as usual. Seeing the young lady, he never thought that he'd find any way, any type of way, anything to use just to put a bruise on his body. So as a parent, I just put him in the shower. I put him in the bathtub to try to, get some of the swelling to go down or whatever the situation may have been, clean him up, make sure he was good.
So he just wanted to ignore the behavior because he felt that was the best option to do. Don't give him the attention, just ignore him. McLean got sidetracked during the interrogation about stating what happened that day that he died, and said that he would do this every time CPS would show up to the house. I really wonder how many times CPS showed up at this home and could have saved this boy. Problem child or not, he needed help. So the detectives tried to get him back on track to the day Takoda died. He said he fed him breakfast at 8 a.m. And when he got up there in the attic, he was laying on his tarp. Yes, I said tarp. And he was assaulting himself, as we talked about earlier. He didn't think it was bad and didn't want the doctors to think he was doing this to him. So he didn't want to take him to get help. He said that the night before he noticed that his stomach was round, like we talked about, and was sticking out. So he gave him like 6 or 7 glasses of water, forcing him to drink it as he threw up. Whatever was in his stomach, he thought that water was going to help. He was thinking that he was sick from eating his own feces. Back to the morning, he took him to the shower after he found him bleeding, and after the shower, he fed him. And Takoda went back upstairs, and some time passed, and he said he hadn't slept in 3 days. McLean keeps saying he hasn't slept in 3 days and doesn't know how much time has passed. And McLean heard Takoda yell out, "Dad, help." And McLean said that he went upstairs and Takoda had stopped yelling for help and was tweaking and did like a shaking motion, which looks like how a mild seizure would look like. I'm not sure what was happening, but the motion he was making, it looked like Takoda was having like a seizure and was non-responsive. He had foam coming out of his mouth. He had described it as throw up in his mouth. He took him downstairs. Takoda couldn't walk. He put him in the tub to see if he was faking, and that is when McLean finally called 911. On the 911 call, he has nothing nice to say about his son, and he's just saying, "I did what I could." He would go on to say that Takoda was naked because he couldn't give him clothes because he would soil them. But after he called 911, he got him dressed. The attic where Takoda was kept, McLean said he boarded up all the windows so Takoda wouldn't jump out of them. Just imagine how scary that would be for a 10-year-old boy. McLean said he told CPS about the outburst of Takoda because he said that they had been to his house 30 to 40 times, but I believe the number is closer to 17 to 20 times based on the reports I've seen. But apparently each of these visits, McLean would say that McLean was a good parent. He would say he drank Colt 45 every other day, but not that much in another breath. He went on to say that he would put hot sauce on Takoda's butt to stop him from pooping everywhere because his dad put hot sauce on his thumb because he was a thumb sucker, and he thought in what world does this even make sense? You put hot sauce on your thumb so you stop sucking your thumb. He put hot sauce on his butt so he'd stop pooping? What? This man was a predator. Dayton police served a search warrant to the Kensington home, locating several items that were allegedly involved in the child abuse. He apparently often used a spatula, which he called a spatula.
So as nasty as he is,
Jenny spanked him
you
before.
take him.
Amanda spanked him before. I mean, we all use the same thing, the spatula. It ain't never been nothing heavy. I just pop him on the butt a couple times, whap, 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 get right. I mean, because he obviously just keep trying to hurt himself.
Get right before what? You started to say
See, that's the mind games. It's not before what? It's get right before you hurt yourself. You know what I mean? Okay. Yeah, before you endanger yourself. Mm-hmm. Like, stop while you're ahead. I used to always tell them that. Stop while you're ahead. Just stop.
How come I asked you like 2 or 3 times what you spanked him with and you told me your hand and then...
Yeah, usually it would be my hand, but I have used a spatula. I want to be honest as possible. I really do. Yeah.
I say things wrong all the time, but this is weird. Does anybody else say it that way? Another interesting fact is that on the wall hung family photos, but there was no photos of Takoda. It breaks my heart. It's as if they wanted him not to exist, but kept him there. Dayton police arrested Amanda on December 20th of 2019, or actually both Amanda and Jennifer at that home. Both are charged in connection with the child abuse and the child abuse investigation. December 23rd, a couple days before Christmas, McLean is indicted with 7 felonies, including rape. He's accused of abusing Takoda between November 1st, 2018 to December 13, 2019. He would receive 51 years. Amanda, on September 8th, pleads guilty to the Montgomery County Common Pleas Court to involuntary manslaughter and endangering children. She received 27 years with a minimum of 22 years. Jennifer pleads guilty to involuntary manslaughter and endangering children. She would be sentenced on September 29th and received 8 years. During sentencing, Judge Atkins said this was the most horrific case of abuse and torture he has seen in his courtroom. He would say, quote, "Although you admit what you did, I do not believe that you fully understand the depravity of your actions in torturing the innocent child," unquote. McLean, 32, will be required to enroll in a Tier 3 sex offender list and as a violent offender. If I could trade my life for his, Amanda would say in court, just trying to get pity. She would tell on Takoda to McLean when he was acting up. She was a complete monster, but in court she's changing her tune. Oh, poor me. No. Judge Atkins would agree, I believe, because he said to her, "You are to blame in this case. You could have stopped this." Atkins had no compassion for her, as I do not either. I wish she would have received the same sentence as McLean. Takoda's grandmother was at the sentencing hearing, but she didn't want to go on camera. In a letter read by a victim advocate in the court, she did ask for justice for Takoda. Judge Atkins also acknowledged that other agencies failed Takoda in this case as well. He specifically called out Dayton Public Schools. Takoda was a student at Horsemane Elementary. At school, Takoda would show up smelling of urine and feces. The teachers would report that he would go to the bathroom just fine while he was there, but would say he would show up to school in this condition. Also, he would show up with haircuts that were off-putting. Amanda would later confirm that this was intentional, to send him to school with bad haircuts as another way for Takoda to be tortured by his peers. McLean would ask for daily updates from the school in hopes he would do something wrong and further abuse him. Anything he did wrong, he was looking for reasons. Al was pure evil, and Takoda was his target from every angle. He had no reprieve from McLean. Dayton Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Elizabeth Lully previously said teachers called Children's Services 17 times to report abuse and concerns. I don't blame the teachers at all because they did try to help. DPS said it had no comment to Judge Atkins' statement. Judge Atkins also called out Montgomery County Children's Services. Judge Atkins was like, he's like, you messed up. He was being honest. Children's Services just absolutely dropped the ball on this case, and there were told what was going on and what was suspected of going on, and really just went through the motions to check on the welfare of Takoda, but did absolutely nothing, the Judge Atkins would also say. They were very good at passing the buck. I'm telling you, it's so true. This was a huge case, and it was a big deal, and there was a lot of people involved. You could almost do a chart of how many people failed this child. The signs were there. He was telling people. People were saying something. You know, if you see something, say something. People were doing that, and nothing was happening. these workers. What is going on? So many different states, too. It wasn't just Ohio. But of course, social services has to do something because this is a big case. And they would say that they were going to work with the community partners to strike proper balance between parental rights and child protection. She says ODJFS and the Governor's Office of Children's Services transformations have the ultimate oversight for the child welfare system. She says that she also has increased staff and training. It sounds like a generic answer. Hopefully they did something. A settlement of $3.25 million was reached between Montgomery County and the estate of 10-year-old Takoda Collins. They would say, this payment is our deductible, but we are hoping that within this payment and the overarching settlement that Takoda's siblings can find some peace in the wake of his brother's tragic death. Part of the money will go to the siblings, part of it will go to the mother, Robin, and the grandmother will receive a portion as well. Here's a list of items that were listed on the lawsuit. These all happened between August 18, 2014 and December 13 of 2019. Defendants misclassified reports of physical abuse such that proper procedures were not following regarding face-to-face interviews, safety risk assessments, and appropriate measures to ensure Takoda's safety. They also failed to perform comprehensive risk assessment for Takoda despite multiple reports of physical abuse. Defendants failed to notify Robin Collins regarding reports of abuse regarding Takoda. So abuse was happening, but the mother was not being updated. Defendants ignored a documented history of abuse, including reports of abuse by Takoda's stepbrother. Defendants ignored explicit reports from Takoda that his father was physically abusing him. He was telling them that he was being abused. Defendants failed to conduct appropriate interviews of collateral sources, so they weren't talking to Takoda to figure out what was going on. They're just showing up and then leaving. Defendants screened out reports of physical abuse despite multiple reports providing new and additional information about Takoda. After receiving requests from Takoda's mother and from multiple sources within the Dayton public school system that Takoda was being physically abused by his father, they did nothing. Defendants permitted McLean to exclude anyone from interviewing or contacting Takoda. Defendants failed to investigate and or actively ignored multiple reports of physical abuse and trauma, therefore permitting McLean, Hines, and Ebert, Amanda and Jennifer, continued contact with Takoda, ultimately resulting in his death. The claims go on, but that just gives you an idea of what the claims were, how much they ignored the case of Takoda. I'll leave the link below. There's so much more information in these documents. I think it's like 100 and something pages of the case where they reached that, or $3.25 million. You know, I just hate these cases where CPS do not do their job. It just drives me nuts. They're understaffed. They're not trained. They have so many excuses. I just want something done. I am curious what you guys think about CPS and this case in general. It was so highly recommended, and I am just in awe at the failure that happened. Well, if you guys have made it to the end, you guys are rock stars and I love you to death. There are more true crime videos in my Captured Killers playlist if you would like to check them out. But either way, stay safe, my loves. And remember, if you see something, say something. But they did in this case and nothing happened. So, anyways, thanks for being here. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.